Install and configure NSX-T 3 for VMware. So to configure this, head over to vmware.com, downloads, click on NSX-T Datacenter, scroll down to the flavor of NSX you want, Enterprise Plus in our case, and the top option here, which is the NSX Manager. We'll start with the Manager of a download. It's about 11 gig. It will take some time, so just save that somewhere where you have space. We're just going to download the NSX Edge as well for a later video. You require this if you're going to install the Edge onto sort of bare metal boxes. For the purpose of this video, we will be deploying Edge from the appliance as virtual machines. So we'll just download that to our download folder. So that will take some time. So I'll just speed up the video at this point. Once that's downloaded, head over to your vCenter client, right click on the Datacenter or cluster in which to deploy this, open the OVA file and then click Upload Files, browse to the OVA file which we just downloaded. There's our manager appliance, so open that. So click Next, give it a meaningful name. I think that'll be too long for our vCenter, so we're going to call this the NSX Manager. You can have multiple managers in a cluster. For this instance, we're just going to have a single manager node. So we just call this Test Lab NSX Manager. I'm happy with the cluster. Click Next. So that's just validating the 11 gig file. So once that's complete, just review the detailed files, see the disk sizes. It will take up 300 gig thick provisioned. We're going to go for the medium install, which is 6 CPUs, 24 gig of memory. So look at the sizing guide. We can put this on our vSAN data store. Select the networks to deploy onto. We've got distributed network here, so PG management. Click Next. Here we just set the root passwords for the appliance. So we just need to enter that and confirm it. We also have the passwords to put in for the CLI admin and for the CLI audit. So go through them. You can ignore the rest. So enter in your host name. So just ensure you don't put underscore in there, they won't be allowed. So what role do we want? So we'll go just for the NSX Manager today. It won't be on a cloud environment. So put your default gateway in there, followed by the IP address of the management, and then the subnet mask 245.245.245. Scroll down. We got DNS list. So this is our DNS server. This is our domain controller, which is acting as DNS. Then put our domain name in here, testlab.local. Put in your NTP server. I like to enable the SSH just for troubleshooting purposes for now. I can show you some commands later on. So confirm all that, click OK, let that import. So we should see in the inventory now the Test Lab has appeared. So we'll just speed up the video here. In the lab environment that took around 15-20 minutes. So once that's complete, we just need to go ahead and then power that on. Just replacements for vSAN, so okay that. So that's powering on. Let's open up the console. I'll go through its first initialization. That does take some time to boot up and get an IP. It took about 5 minutes for me. we'll just speed this up. Right, so head over to your web page. Google and Firefox works better with this. Put in your domain name. Log on using the password you added into the appliance. Accept the ULA agreement. And continue that. It's up to you if you want to go with the customer experience. Right, so this is our first site of the manager. First we just need to add in our vCenter. So over to System, Fabric and Compute Managers. So we just click Add. We're just going to add in our vCenter. So my vCenter in this case VCSA 7, followed by the fully qualified domain name or IP address in that case. So the logon name for the vCenter itself, so administrator at vsphere.local, and then our password. If you have a certificate you can add it here. Enable trust you can ignore for now. Later videos there's a support for upcoming features. So we should see this in progress. When that's imported, it should say successful. It can take a minute or two. Okay, so it's registered now in our manager window. Connection status is now up. So head over to transport zones. We need to add 2 zones. So first it's going to be our overlay network zone. This is effectively where the transport nodes communicate with each other. So we call this prod overlay. Transport zone. We need to add that into a switch. So this would be our NSX switch. So meaningful name that corresponds to the transport zone. So overlay NDVS. Okay, that we need to add one more transport zone. This transport zone is going to be for our VLANs. This is communication outside the environment, using the uplinks. So we call this prod VLAN TZ. Again, this goes into its own switch. So prod VLAN, the meaningful name, NVDS, and select traffic type. Ensure you have VLAN here if you're using the VLAN transport zone. Click Add. So successfully created. Now we can head over to our network, and we need to add some address pools. These address pools are going to be used for our VTEP, which the nodes communicate over. So for this address pool, we're going to call this VTEP IP pool, and then add your subnets. Click Add Subnet. We're going to use a range, so just type in your IP range here. So we're going to use between 151 up until 170. And add item or hit enter, making sure that that accepts in there. Add your SIDA, so our network address, followed by our gateway IP. So click Add. Once that's successfully in there, click Apply, and then Save. So whilst that initializes, successful. Okay. So now we can head over and add our transport nodes. So its defaults are standalone, so change this to vcenter managed, so in our case it would be the VCSA7. We've installed these under the cluster 01, so select cluster 01 or the cluster in which you wish to put the configure NSX nodes on, and then click configure. So we're going to create our transport node profile. So effectively this profile will be applied to all transport nodes that sit within this profile. So these are going to sit on our ESXi hosts. So we call this ESXi TN profile. I'm happy with NPDS, give it a meaningful name. So this would be the profiles for our overlay NVDS. Select our transport zone, which is our overlay here. And select our host network host profile here, and then uplink. These are just defaults, but you can amend them. For LLDP, we just set that to disabled for now. So IP management, we're just going to select our IP pool that we just created. So we'll just search for that. That's our VTEP there. Here's our teaming policies, so active standby mode. So we just need to add in the physical NIC we can use for this uplink. So in my case, we're going to use the VM NIC 1. Press add or enter and apply that. So there's our profile created, which will apply to these two NSX nodes, and any other node we wish to add in using that profile. So this would take about 5-10 minutes, so we'll just speed through the video at this point. Okay, so they've applied now. We just need to add our network segments. We're going to start off with 3 segments. So we can have our web segment connected to the overlay transport zone. We need to set our subnet. This effectively becomes the gateway for machines in that segment. Click no. I'm just going to create another one here. We'll call this our app segment. These are just effectively host switches as they were in previous versions. So this is going to be the gateway for our machines in this app network. So click save. No, we don't want to configure it anymore. Add one last segment. This in our instance is going to be the DB segment. We don't want to connect any gateways to this. Add the transport zone. It's going to be going over the overlay. Finally, our subnet gateway for this network. Click save. No, we don't want to make any more changes. So they're up and they're successful. So we should see them in vCenter. So okay, the nodes have had a chance to have the profiles applied. So I head over to vCenter. So we just need to add in the new segments into our app machines. So like any other virtual machine, you head over to the edit mode, select the network which he's going to go to, and our segments are now visible in here. So add that into our app segment. I'm just going to add that into the app segment. Just going to disconnect the previous NIC, which is no longer required. So all their machines are now connected to our segments on the NSX. So now we open the console to one of the machines. We should be able to test connectivity between all the subnets. We've not created any routing yet, so it should be able to communicate with the machines in its own subnet. So that one works. So that's pinging host the Web 01 from Web 02. So we just need to add in our edge transport node. Just need to give it a valid name, so NSX Edge 01. This is going to be our fully qualified domain name. And we have some t-shirt size in here. We'll go medium in this case. So just add in your password. I like to enable SSH to do some troubleshoot testing. So we select our vcenter. This is where it's going to be deployed to. We're statically assigned some IP addresses here. And then choose the interface in which your edge servers are going to go out using. So then the domain name they're going to be on, followed by the DNS server, and then lastly your NTP server. So when that's complete, click Next. And then the edge switch name they're going to be on. So RKCs are going to be on the overlay NVDS switch. They're going to be on the transport zone that we created earlier, so part of the overlay network. And our uplink profile, we can use the default one here, so the single NIC uplink profile. And for the IP, we're going to use our static pool again that we created earlier. So there's enough addresses in there. Right, so again we need to select our interface, so we're going to use our edge uplinks that we have. So we need to add another switch. This switch is going to be for the VLAN network. So give it a meaningful name. So it's going to be on our VLAN transport zone. Select our uplink profile again, so it's going to be our single NIC in this case. And then select that interface which your edges are going to go out on. You may have different NICs for these two switches. For our lab environment, we're going to use the same NIC. Okay, so that's going to deploy. That's a few gigs. That's going to take some time. So I'll let that run through. I'll speed up the video at this point. So we're going to create a second edge here for the purpose of clustering. You can add a single node into a cluster. We're going to use two edge nodes, so we're going to call this one NSX Edge -02. It's the same process as before. We're going to use medium again. So just put our passwords for this edge node. So same as before. So after hitting refresh, we can see that both modes are now successful. I didn't add a switch to the last node, but you can see how easy it is just to edit. We can just add in the VLAN switch again, add in our uplink profile, same as before, and then we can just save that. Right, that looks like it's good to go. So now we can just add in our edge cluster where these two nodes are going to sit in. So we're going to call this one edge cluster 01. We just add in our two new edge nodes and then click add. And our cluster is now complete. Now we can head over and create our tier 1 gateway. So we'll call our one T1 GW-01. We can't link this to tier 0 yet, we've not created that. You can just have a single tier network and just have tier 0. We're going to have two tiers. We could create our tier 1 first. So route advertisement, we just need to add static routes and connected segments. So add that. So now we need to edit our segments, and we're going to attach these to the new tier 1 gateway. This is how all the VMs should be able to communicate using that gateway address we set. So just save that. That's the web segment attached to the tier 1 gateway now. So this is our east-west traffic. So let's do the other two. So edit this one. Connected gateway, tier 1 gateway, and then we need to save that. And then edit our DB segment, add this one also to the tier 1 gateway and save. Close editing. Right, so they're all added into the tier 1 gateway now. So let's head back over to our vCenter client. Go to one of the machines in the segments. So we're in app 1 at the moment. So let's see if we can ping one of the DB machines. Yep. That's one of the web servers. This is the DB machine, and this is the other Apo. It's Apo 1. Right, let's test from the DB01 server. So ping one of the web servers, that's coming back, and that's another DB server, and this is the app server. So they're all in different subnets, they're communicating via the tier 1 gateway, and they can route through, so that's successful. Right, we need to add another segment here. This is for the tier 0 gateway. So our uplinks are effectively going to be added into this segment. Select our transport zone. So because it's going outside, we select the VLAN transport zone. This is going out using VLAN 0, so we can save that. click no, we don't want to configure that anymore. We want to add another segment for the other uplink. So we've got resilience there, so again with T0 GW-01 uplink 2. Changes to the transport zone VLAN, VLAN 0, and then save that. So we now have uplinks 1 and 2 in which the tier 0 gateway can communicate through. So let's add our new tier 0 gateway. So click add gateway, tier 0, give it a meaningful name. So we call ours tier 0 GW01. These have to add to a cluster. So this is why we added our cluster earlier on. So add this to our edge cluster. We'll click save. And then click yes. We will amend this. We need to add in our interfaces. Do route redistribution first. So let's set that. Click add route redistribution. Give it a name. Then we need to set our route redistribution. So we want to enable static routes, connected interfacing segments for tier 0, and click connected internet interface segments for our tier 1 subnets. It should auto select everything else, so let's apply that. Add, and click apply. Let's save that. Right, select our interfaces. So we add in the 2 interfaces that we created earlier. So this would be our T0 gateway uplink 1. Leave that as external and put in an IP address for this uplink. So this is the route it will go out through to the external routers. So add this to the segment uplinks that we created earlier. We add this to edge node 1. Save that. And now we just need to add the second interface going out to the other uplink. So again, this will be tier 0 gateway and then uplink 2. Add in the IP address. They can communicate with a router, and we're going to add this to the uplink 2 segment, and this is going to go out using the edge 2 server. So save that. Right, so refresh. They're both successful now, so we can just click close. So our tier 0 gateway is now effectively connected to our edge cluster. There we have 2 uplinks. We now need to set our BGP. So ours is 100. Make sure you set the BGP neighbours as well. So go over and click neighbours. We need to add our neighbour. These are going to be our external routers. So in our case 192.168.100.1, and our autonomous system number is 200. So the source address in which it's going through, so this is the uplink. So this is going to be our uplink 1. So we can save that. Add in our second neighbour. So this would be the IP address of the second router. And then the source address, so it's going to go out through the second uplink. And then click save. So we can click refresh, so it becomes successful, click close. So save that. So our tier 0 gateway is now complete. We do need to link these two together, so you do that from the tier 1 gateway. So over to tier 1 gateway, click edit, link tier 0 gateway, select our tier 0, and then click save. So it's as simple as connecting the two gateways together that way. So save that, close editing, and they are now linked together. So that was install and configure NSX-T 3 for the data center. I hope that was useful. In later videos we'll be looking at VRF Lite, Latin, VPN, distributed firewalls. So there's a lot to get through. So hit that subscribe button, whereas I hopefully upload these videos soon, and you'll be informed. So right, thank you.